The following podcast may be explicit. One Joe Young presents Adventures from the Shed, a tabletop RPG podcast. You can find us online at adventuresfromtheshed.com.
All right, here we are in the shed for Adventures from the Shed. You can find us online at adventuresfromtheshed.com. On iTunes, Facebook, Stitcher Radio, Google Plus, Bing, and hey, right here on the tube of you. We're here in the shed today. We have a special day set for us of Trail of Cthulhu, and the person who's going to get us started with that is a person who's going to say hi first. That guy over there.
Joe, every day I'm with you is a special day.
Who is that, though?
Hey, everyone, this is Kurt. I'm going to be playing the Keeper today in the Trail of Cthulhu adventure, The Keepers of the Woods.
Cool. Oh, and after that, I get to press buttons here still, and I'm going to switch that to that guy.
Hello, everybody. I'm Verge. I've been guest on the shed before. Looking forward to getting into this. It's a game I've never played before, so.
And waking up.
Oh yeah, I'm just new baby, man.
It's all good. We'll try to keep you awake.
And that guy.
I'm just here for the hot pineapple. This is Chris.
Don't.
To see if I can drive everybody to insanity with the hot pineapple.
Woohoo! And last and most importantly is Kurt. Or me. Hi, I'm Joe. I'm here, and we are here, and we won't go straight to the hot pineapple because, all right.
I'll do my best not to mention that even one time today. So
Awesome.
I'll leave that all to you. I think it might break the spirit of the game that we're trying to play.
Yeah.
But
Well,
you know, if you
pineapple?
have to. You
That's
do
why I
it.
threw it in at the beginning.
Yeah.
All right, if it's all right, let me give you all a preface because this is a new game system to all of us. Some of us played one Trail of Cthulhu adventure years ago that Joe ran.
Halloween 2016, I believe.
Yeah, and I think it was like Return to Red Hook or something from the Arkham Detectives book. But I think that's the only time we played. And Chris, were you in that game?
I don't think so.
You were not. And Verge, you weren't.
Yeah, definitely wasn't.
And I have never been the game master, or what they call the keeper,
Keeper.
for a Trail of Cthulhu game. So I won't lie, I'm a little nervous. It's hard to run a totally new system, particularly when you're being recorded. But I know that these guys are great storytellers and great players, so I think we're going to have a really good time.
I think he's talking about you.
The Trail of Cthulhu system was created by Ken Hite, and it's based on the Gumshoe investigative game system, which was created by Robin D. Laws, who's super famous, and a lot of you probably know him. Let me just give a real high-level overview of Gumshoe, and then talk a little bit about Trail of Cthulhu. And then I think what we're going to do here on this first session is kind of jump into character creation and talk a little bit about the backstory, and then probably jump right into the adventure.
So shiny.
That is an attractive bald head. I will also say that when it gets into the adventure itself, if you are watching this for a how to play Trail of Cthulhu, you're probably in the wrong place.
Or if you're watching it for how to learn to play, this might be a good idea.
Exactly. My point
Maybe
was,
not how to play it the right way.
I will likely make mistakes in the way that we handle some tests or combat or things like that, but we're playing it mostly for story and for fun, and we're going to get as close as we can. But if you are an expert and you realize that I used the wrong number for a difficulty check or something, I know that's going to happen, and we're not going to worry about it. So before we talk about the system a little bit, I wanted to just read you guys, because I think it's awesome, 2 paragraphs from the introduction in the core rulebook. This is not necessarily backstory for your investigators at this point in your career.
Don't mess up, Kurt.
No, I'll be devoured by the deep ones. But I just like this for flavor. You are among the few who suspect the truth about the mad gods at the center of the universe, about the great old ones who dream of clearing off the earth, about the extraterrestrials who use mankind in their experiments, about the ancient legends of undying evil that are all coming true. You have to make sure nobody else ever finds out, or the world will wake up screaming. You have to keep the doors to the outside from swinging open, no matter what the cost in life or sanity. You have to piece together the clues from books bound in human skin, from eviscerated corpses covered in ichor, and from inscriptions carved on the walls built before humanity evolved. You have to go wherever the answers are and do what needs to be done. So
I'm not sure I'm up for that.
Having said that, unlike D&D or the Roll20 games that we tend to play, this is really an investigative game. And what Trail of Cthulhu is, my understanding is, there's a prior game from a different company, different system called Call of Cthulhu, which some of the watchers may be familiar with. And people love the flavor of that game, love the universe created by H.P. Lovecraft. But they took that game and then modified it to the Gumshoe system and created a new game called Trail of Cthulhu. And what the Gumshoe system is built around is investigating and finding clues. And kind of the core philosophy, the way I understand it, is that it is no fun to not find clues and proceed.
Yeah.
So, in D&D, like, you can be in a room, and if you roll a really crappy perception check, you just don't find the secret room. And if the secret room is awesome, it's, a bummer that you missed it. And what we're going to do here is have you never miss at least the core clue that makes you get on to the next scene to keep the story moving forward. Now, there's additional information that you can get by playing your character well and using points in a way that we'll talk about. But that's essentially for more flavor, for more background, for stuff that will help create the mood of the game, at a deeper and higher level. So I'll give you guys just a little overview of the way Gumshoe works. There are other games built on this system, published by Pelgrane Press. For example, Nice Black Agents is kind of a World War II meets Dracula spy adventure. They also have a Delta Green kind of Vietnam horror game that I'm not particularly familiar with, but that's supposed to be awesome. And there may be others as well, but they share this basic system. And the idea here is that you are going to play a character called an investigator, and I'm going to play the game master, which we call the keeper. And this plot will bring you guys together, but your goal is to have investigators who complement each other by covering almost all of the skills that we would need. And instead of trying to be particularly awesome at one thing, you're probably going to have a kind of a broad space of skills. There are two types of abilities in the game. There are investigative abilities, and this is how you learn stuff. So if you look on your character sheet, I think you'll see.
Yeah,
he's got out here.
Academic, interpersonal, technical.
Yeah, so we've got all the skills kind of listed by area here. Investigative abilities are broken down. They're the academic, interpersonal, and technical knowledge, but they all work basically the same way. As long as you have 1 point in that skill, you can do that, and you're essentially an expert at it. So we're going to have points to allocate, and as long as you have a point in archaeology, then you know a lot about archaeology. Okay? Now, if you put additional investigative points into archaeology, so let's say for some reason you had 3 points, you can spend those points during the course of our adventure to get additional information. So, if we're in a place where there's something, a particularly interesting facade on a building, you might say, hey, I want to use my archaeology skill to see what I know about this building, or how old this building is, or its history. And I might tell you something, and then I might either offer that there's additional information if you're willing to spend points, or you can proactively say to me, hey, if it makes sense, I want to spend a point in archaeology to find out more.
Now, when you spend that point is gone.
It's gone from your pool.
Okay.
Now, I will say, generally, don't hoard your points, okay? We're doing a one-shot. The chances of you running out of points are not that high, and if you do, it's never going to stop the adventure.
Yeah.
Ending the game with a bunch of points in, assess honesty or archaeology just means you didn't have fun spending them.
Right. Plus, if you're at the end and you have 0 points, it can create more tension because there's less extra stuff you can do. You're stuck where you are.
That's right.
And trying to find a way out.
But you will never not be able to do your skill. Okay, so you'll always at least have that skill. Now, if Chris started off with 3 points in archaeology and Verge started out in 1, all that means is you have the opportunity to ask for more archaeology knowledge during the course of the game. It doesn't mean you're a better archaeologist than he is. Okay? And generally, you are going to want to spread your investigative skills so that you can cover everything. Now, as I said, you'll never fail on an investigation. It's just a question of how much more do you get.
That sounds like a challenge.
I'm pretty sure we could fail at it.
When you guys go into a room or into a scene, you guys, I think, are good enough players to kind of say, I look around, what do I see, and point me something on your character sheet that might let me give you clues. So, you could say, wow, there's something weird going on with the weather, and look for something that might help you that. It could be maybe outdoorsman or maybe physics. If no one is, if you guys are stumbling or no one's asking kind of the right things, I might offer, like I said, hey, this might be a good place for someone to make a physics check. All right, so I'm not going to linger on that. other type of skills are what they call general abilities, and these require tests. So these are things like driving, scuffling, using firearms, and these you will have points that you can spend to improve essentially your roll, but you can fail on your use of general abilities. All rolls in this game are really simple because they are 1d6. And basically, you're just rolling against a difficulty number that I will usually tell you, and that will often be 4. Okay? So 1, 2, 3, you fail. 4, 5, 6, you succeed on the general ability, is the basic way it works. But if you have 8 points in driving, and you want to really make sure that you make this turn and don't go off the cliff, or whatever the negative would be, you can take 2 or 3 points from your driving pool, spend them permanently, and then add that to your d6.
Gotcha.
So spending even just a few points can basically guarantee you success on a roll. The particular adventure we're playing probably is not going to have a lot of combat, and the reason is we're playing the Keepers of the Woods, which is what they would call a purist adventure. Basically, in Trail of Cthulhu, there's kind of 2 types of games. Well, there's the standard, but then there's purist and there's pulp. Pulp would be more like you're investigators with, machine guns going around and ultimately probably shooting at the deep ones at the end of the game. It's a little bit sillier, but potentially a little bit more fun if you're in that mood, I would say. This one is at the opposite end of the spectrum. It's going to be a little bit more psychological. You'll actually have more risk of kind of going crazy or dying. And the author who created the Cthulhu mythos, H.P. Lovecraft, he wrote in both of these styles at different points in his career. So they're both legitimate. It's just today we're going to be playing purist. So combat won't be as important to you. All right, what else do I need to tell you guys about Gumshoe background? I think...
You're not really asking, right? That's rhetorical.
I'm just looking at my notes to make sure I've got...
Because I don't know.
I think
what
that's
else?
Enough background.
The funny part is I've run this, but I don't remember enough of it from 2016.
So I will tell you, if
Here we are in 2019.
If you don't play it, you're not going to remember the details of the system. Hellgrain Press is awesome. They're one of the great game publishers. And on their website, they put up a lot of free stuff. And they actually have a whole Trail of Cthulhu page with links to all kind of free resources, including character sheet, a couple of free adventures. This is one of their free adventures.
Let me mention another thing, too. One of the reasons that we're playing this, I bought the book for Trail of Cthulhu, and one of the things Pelgrane Press does is they let you get the PDF for free if you can show them proof of purchase for the book. Right. And I can't find my book, but because I have the PDF, Kurt was able to put something together for us. So, big props to them, because now you have the digital version. And that allowed us to actually get this going today, because I can't find my damn book.
Yes, if only Wizards of the Coast would listen to it, it would be awesome. Yep. But they do have a few free adventures. They're also, you can buy books like, I think it's Arkham Detective Tales has 4 or 5 adventures and things like that. But having said that, they also have up on there links to a 1-page rules cheat sheet, which is awesome because the core rulebook is 256 pages or something. So they have a 1-page cheat sheet. But I'm presuming that the gentlemen playing with me today don't know any of these rules, and we're just going to try to walk through it as need be rather than going through them all now. When we encounter a situation, we will do our best to play through it according to the rules, or at least according to something that is fun. There is also a link.
Which is rule number 1 in the shed.
That is right.
Yes.
That's right. We're more about the story and the recording than getting every technical rule correct here today.
Fun.
Yep.
I think it should be like that in your home games too, because
Well, yeah. But sometimes, especially in a home game, you have the time to just sit and look up a rule, especially if everyone wants to know what it was.
Yeah.
Because you get in those situations of, really? Does that really do 2d10 of damage? No, I think it's 1. No, I think it's 3. And then you take that time to go find it. Here, we're just going to say whatever was the most beneficial. If it was the bad guy casting it, it's going to be 1. If it was a good guy, it's 3. And move on.
Right. I'll just also mention that up on that website, there's a condensed rules PDF.
Oh, cool.
That's about 35 pages. That, to be honest, is more than enough, or at least points you to the big book for key areas. Cool. And there is something created by a third party, Tony Williams, who's done a lot of stuff with this game. I'm not sure I'll pronounce this right, but I think it's the Enchiridion of Elucidation, which is kind of his summary of the rules with examples, which is really helpful. All right, so enough background, I think. Keepers of the Woods, in the PDF, which is about 30 pages total, provides, I think it's 5 sample investigators. And we had started kind of coming up with our own investigators, but when I looked at it, these sample investigators are great for having links to each other and links to the plot. And also, because it already has stats in there, I think it'll make it a little bit easier for our guys. So I don't know if we're going to use them exactly as written, but they were close enough to what the guys wanted to do that they're at least going to be the basis for the characters that they play today. And if you have this PDF, those sample investigators are on pages like 7 to 9, I think.
Cool. So, yeah, that's a good point, Kirk, because I have the papers right here. It is 7, 8, and 9.
Awesome.
And I'm just finishing writing down the stuff for the character that I'm going to play so that I can pass
Are you
this on
going
to
through
someone
it?
else.
Yeah, it's easy.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you guys, because I want to look one or two things up, why don't you guys take, actually, let me give a 5-second overview of the adventure and the society that you guys are a part of, and then you guys can maybe give your backstory and kind of show or tell everyone what you've got for your abilities. So you guys are all affiliated in some way with a group called the Miscellany Society. This adventure starts in London, England, and the society holds various meetings and lectures, demonstrations in a very nice, large, upscale, what we would call townhouse in the Bloomsbury region or district of London. The subjects of the talks and meetings always focus on folklore and history, mythology, and also literature related to the occult. It invites characters and people of all types, anyone with interest in the matter. So you might have a dilettante there who's just kind of bored with his or her life and likes to come to the meetings. You might have a book dealer who goes there to learn advanced knowledge that will help him with his shop or his acquisitions. There are members of the military, police officers, even, you could have a homeless person who just needs ways to fill the time, and so he can come and listen to the lectures. They are open to all who have interest. So I'd say that just by way of background for when you guys are going through telling us kind of what your link is to the society. You also all have a link to Professor Blackwood, who is an incredibly knowledgeable professor in this area. She is a little bit older than you all. She's kind of in her mid-40s. She's what I would think of as kind of a classic professor. She's often wearing kind of a tartan plaid skirt. She has her long hair often up in a bun, and she's usually has a pen literally stuck in the bun of her hair because she almost always is carrying, and you would all know this, her burgundy leather journal that she writes all of her notes and observations in, and so she'll often literally like grab a pen out of the bun of her hair to jot notes in her journal and then put it back. So I'll stop there and let you guys spend a minute or two telling us who you're playing today.
I think Chris should start because he was the first one to figure out what he was doing.
I'm just reading from the sample investigator, though. My plan was to play an archaeologist, so the closest one that fit was a dilettante with some archaeology skills. It was originally a female character, but we're changing it to a male, so I don't have to, I don't know, make things confusing for everybody.
Plus all that sexual tension when Joe's character hits on you might be more than we could handle.
So much more.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just going to pull what's actually already written down here. The concept is insolvent heir, drive is adventure, occupation is dilettante. I guess I'm going to skip over, I don't know, do we need to go over the stability stuff or Pillars of Sanity? Is that important for this? Or
because this is a one-shot, it's not particularly important, but for people who are interested in the game, really, this is a game where there's a good chance, generally in Trail of Cthulhu, the characters are going to go crazy or die. And so they often have a couple of ideas or people that they cling to and rely on as a source of stability or truth. And so as they can either be contacts in the game, or those can be things that if they were killed or eroded or just would contribute to your loss of sanity. But I think for this game, if you want to have one contact or one pillar, that's fine. It might help with an epilogue on the story, but it won't affect the actual gameplay.
Gotcha. Well, I'll run it through then. Source of stability for the character is an Aunt Emily, which is the stern spinster character, and then her a brother Godfrey, which is the character has two brothers that kind of went off and did their own thing, and I was just being lazy and the lazy rich kid not doing anything at the time. So going over my skills, I have archaeology.
What's the character name?
I'm going to go with How, and the last name is Lowell, so How Low.
How do you spell How?
It's H-O-W-E.
H-O-W-E. And
How Low.
L-O-W-E?
Lowell.
Lowell.
Oh, maybe I should go for Howell Lowell. No, I'll just do
I thought it
Howell.
was how low.
Yeah.
There we
Lowell
go.
sounds like a good
How Lowell?
name for a dilettante.
Lowell. Yeah. Investigative skills are archaeology, art history, chemistry, credit rating, flattery, geology, history, occult, and physics. General skills are health, stability, sanity, athletics, driving, and firearms. I'm not going to go over points right now. Most of my general skills seem to be halfway decent, though. So the back history on this character, I'm not going to read it verbatim, but basically I was kind of like screwing off, doing whatever I wanted because I had money in my 20s, and my older brothers were kind of going to Oxford and getting their learn on so they can go get real jobs, and I just kind of was fucking off, doing whatever I wanted. Then the depression hit. Turns out my dad didn't really do well with maintaining the money, so I didn't really have no money left over to me. And my aunt was kind of like, "Well, we have
Thanks,
money,
Dad.
we have money, but we want you to kind of get your shit together, make something of yourself, and maybe we'll give you some money out of that." So I dove into the archaeology thing. I tried to do geology, but found it boring. Got to the archaeology thing, and then roped into literature, languages, a bunch of sciences, things like that. And then the way I got into the Miscellaneous Society, it was attended a lecture on mythology for ancient Egypt, and excited, very much the whole archaeology, Indiana Jones thing. That sounds exciting, going to far off places and learning crazy mythos. That's when I talked to Margaret Blackwood, and she kind of oh, maybe you should kind of join us and get into this kind of thing. So it's kind of like one of those discovery of a lifetime kind of things going on,
Yeah, she really liked you personally, and as you said, you've been bored, you've just been listless, and you really have latched on to kind of this archaeology and to her in particular.
Yeah.
And so that's the main thing. The stuff about the siblings is great backstory, but what really matters here is that you have a very personal connection to her and to the society.
Yep. So I've been invited into the inner circle.
There is no inner circle.
Oh, there's going to be look. There's supernatural stuff going on. There's always circles.
All right, Joe, or you want to go, or?
Verge, you know what your character is yet?
Go ahead.
Damn it, now I gotta do something? Hold on a second. After Chris read his, I was like, well, I should know more about my character.
I'll cover you if you need to.
Oh, please do. Do you have these printed as well?
I do.
Cool. So I am, I'm going to play the character that is written as Sheldon Rawlings. I'm just going to change the name to Sherman, just so you know that's the one I'm playing.
Okay.
So Sherman Rawlings. The concept for the pre-gen is an underhand book dealer. Essentially, this is a criminal driven by greed. He has a business partner who is one of his sources of stability. His mom, Mary, and his old mentor, Frank Lucky Bridges. Lucky, not Lucky Bridges. Lucky is the nickname. Lucky Bridges. What a cool nickname that would be, huh? Anyway, burn all your Lucky Bridges or whatever. So as Chris mentioned, I'll go through some of these investigative skills quickly. Accounting, bargain, credit rating, history, intimidation, library use, locksmith, reassurance, streetwise. Then for some general skills, of course, health, stability, sanity. Sanity's up there. I guess he starts pretty good. Athletics, filch, because, well, he's a thief. Fleeing, because he's a thief. Has scuffling, well, because he's a thief. Sense trouble, well, you get the idea.
How do we get roped into with?
Yeah. Shadowing and stealth. So this is during the Great Depression. I think Kurt mentioned some of the period stuff early on. Actually, I guess it's right
It's
after.
1935.
But yeah. But the Great Depression brought low many collectors, forcing them to get rid of stuff that they had. And I'm a broker in such transactions, as it were. My special interest is books. I research them extensively, locate potential sellers, and then I get it for them. However, and a member of my clients frequent the Miscellaneous Society on Museum Street. I attend there frequently, ready to service requests for obscure items and always producing the requested books on time. On-time delivery, as it were. And this is where I befriended Professor Margaret Blackwood. She's a strange woman obsessed with folklore. She's presented several jobs, including a request for an 1834 edition of the Darker Superstitions of Scotland. Provided quite the adventure to obtain, and a princely sum as a reward. Her recent letter has been intriguing, and it entices me with the potential for future escapades.
That letter will be the beginning of the adventure when we get there.
Yeah, and my latest attempt to pass off one of my partner George's forgeries as a rare first edition has the police sniffing around, trying to see what's going on, like a pack of wild dogs.
Well,
So maybe if I take a trip to the countryside, that could be just a ticket to get away from them.
Well, and Professor Blackwood really likes you as well.
Yeah.
She is more than happy to overlook your somewhat underhanded or sketchy ways of acquiring knowledge because her lust for that knowledge is so high.
That's right, girl.
All right, awesome. And Verge, you want to tell us a little bit about your guy?
Yeah. My guy was based on Edward Tillman, but I've changed his name to Terrence Crews because he's an ex-cop turned author.
Terrence Crews.
Terrence Crews.
Does he go by Terry or
Yeah, he goes by Terry or T. Crews. Or,
Does he often rip his shirt off? And flex?
I'm going to spell it this way just because I think it's funny. But there you go. Terrence Crews.
He's Latino?
He is an ex-cop turned
Crozet.
author. His skills, he's pretty high health and stability and sanity.
What are your health and stability?
I'd say all of ours are pretty solid. Like
Mine are 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Health, sanity, and stability are 10
Okay.
for me.
My health is 8, stability is 10, sanity is 10.
Okay, so just so you guys know, let me pop in here for half a second. Stability is a short-term measurement of, essentially your mental health. So when something bad happens to you in the game, that stability can go away in chunks, and it can go away pretty quickly. But in theory, if you survive the adventure, if this were a continuing campaign, that pool refreshes after each session. Whereas sanity is like the long-term measure of basically your ignorance of the blackness at the center of the universe.
Yeah.
And that's something that goes down slowly and probably will only go down like in the climax of the adventure. But I think it doesn't come back.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
sanity
Come
loss
back.
is permanent.
Right,
Yeah.
so you in a campaign can slowly kind of, even if you survive the first episode, that can go away. In the purest, the reason I jumped in here is because in the purest game, health and stability are actually capped at, I think, 10. Might be 12. Nope, sorry, capped at 12. So even though you guys are saying, oh, we're really high, it's actually not that high. If you were playing like in the pulp mode or whatever, you guys might have 18 stability or 18
gotcha.
health. So, and part of that is because in those other modes, you have more points to allocate. Like you might have 60 points to allocate, so you put 15 or 20 in health.
Yeah.
So it seems like you guys have a lot relative, but that's not necessarily the case.
Cool.
Okay, we suck.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, we suck. Thanks, Kurt.
No,
Thanks a lot, man.
It just is meant
I
to make
just-
the adventure a little bit more challenging.
Right.
So, keep going.
No, you're good. He was forced to retire after an encounter with crazed lunatics. He took a knife to the leg instead of an arrow.
Crazy lunatics are the best kinds of lunatics.
His partner actually died, though, so that's why he kind of had to take himself off the force. So at that point, he started writing about his experiences at the suggestion of his friend, Henry Langford. It's in here. And that friend invited him to join the Miscellaneous Society for a talk on the witch cults of Western Europe. And my guy, Terry, he doesn't really believe in any of that stuff. It's all just imagination, but it was a nice, thought. But that's when he started kind of adding that type of thing into his own novels. But then he eventually met Margaret Blackwood, and talking through her, he decided to write what became his magnum opus, The Revenge of Thoth, and it was his best-selling book. The editor was very pleased at it, and he commissioned a follow-up, which is going to be The Eye of Ishkur. So that's why he's doing research on that. So that's why he was invited to Dartmoor, to see if he can find some inspiration for future stories.
Excellent.
So not a believer, but definitely a writer of things
Oh,
of
yeah.
this nature.
He'll research.
Cool.
Right, and so my understanding is at this point, you guys all have an interest in either folklore or mythology or the occult, but you have not been out on adventures where you would have seen what we would think of as kind of the horrors of the Lovecraftian universe. So, but you are together in this world and connected in it, if not friendship, at least shared interest through the Miscellaneous Society. Any
Cool.
questions about the mechanics or the character sheets before we kind of jump into it? And realize that I may have as many questions as you.
I guess we'll see what we need to do, when we get to it.
I think I'm going to
all the
do
point pile
is I'm
works.
not going to fill in the player name box. That way, when I screw up, no one will know who did it.
I like it. I mean, it's not like it's out on the internet or
No.
YouTube or anything like
No,
that.
of
and
course
not
not.
to mention, I can put your name on top of my picture, and
It's all good. All good. All right. Verge, you good to go?
Yeah.
All
just filling out the.
that would be a
numbers
cool
here.
name. Verge, good to go.
Verge, you're good to go. All right. So the main goal here is to have fun,
Whee!
but not necessarily in a comedy sense.
Yeah.
So
Go crazy.
I am going to start
Don't mind
the
if I
adventure,
do.
The Keepers of the Woods. And in case you are, here's my printout of
Oh,
the PDF.
yeah. Hold that right up there.
Here's the cover of the PDF that I printed off from the Pelgrane website,
There you
Pelgrane
go.
Press. And we're going to jump right in. They provide handout number 1, which would be for you all here, but I'm going to go ahead and read it, given the way that we are. But you guys receive a very nice postcard. each of
Very
you,
nice.
addressed to you at the Miscellaneous Society at 4445 Museum Street in Bloomsbury, London. And it says,
Hold on. Is it from Margaret Blackwood?
it is from Professor M. Blackwood.
I'll make sure you read it in her voice.
I will do my best.
Otherwise, I'm not going to be freaked out.
So for each one of you, you receive something equivalent to this. It says, "My dearest friend, I've made a most remarkable discovery.
Oh, she's hot.
Who would have thought that Dartmoor held such a key to my research? An extant group who actively worship an ancient god right here in England. You must come to Post Bridge at once. Your advice and insight into this matter would be most helpful to me. I have accommodations at the Thistle Lodge. I look forward to seeing you as soon as possible." By way of geography, since we are not British, my understanding is that the Dartmoor is a moor in. Oh, you want me to hold it up?
No, is that a map on the back?
It is of a village when we get there.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But
I
it
thought
is-
it might have helped.
It is a moor in Devonshire,
Okay.
and so we're going essentially to what we would think of as the Dartmoor region, and then the smaller village. And there's a couple villages we may be in, but I think we're going to start in the village of Post Bridge. And when we say village, we're talking like one street, some houses and 3 or 4 public buildings.
Okay.
So, so you all received this letter from Professor Blackwood, urging you, Margaret Blackwood, urging you to join her as soon as possible. And I'm just going to set aside my handouts.
Now, the way the adventure plays out, do these characters know each other, like at all?
You do from the society.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea
So
is that
we've
you
met
all-
at least in passing.
Yeah, you've
Yeah.
all at least been
All
at
right.
meetings together. They have kind of a general monthly meeting at the society, and then there's a weekly meeting, kind of committee meeting for subspecialties. So you can decide how well you know each other, but you certainly have been to that monthly meeting, for as long as you want to.
Perhaps I've gotten some books off you.
Perhaps.
Handedly.
I'm an author. You're a book dealer.
That's all it takes. What was the name of the adventure again? Sorry. Keepers?
The Keepers of the Woods.
The Keepers of the Woods.
All right,
Wow.
so you all have received the letter urging you to come to Post Bridge to Thistle Lodge. And
Let's go out to see the professor.
as I say, I'll have you guys react to
I
that
don't
and
wanna
then
leave
go
it.
from there.
I don't-
Yeah.
Now, we've gotten these letters separately, right?
Yes, but they were all addressed to you at the society because they knew that you would
Oh.
be able to pick
And there was
them up
no
from
certain
there.
day. We just show up whenever get the thing and get going.
Okay.
I mean, I think the idea is that you've just received the letter and she's very excited to see you.
Right.
All right. I would expect, because of my profession, I'd be the last to show up to make sure I could case a joint ahead of time.
So would you guys go up there together? The area that you're going to is a full 6 to 7 hours from London by train, probably 5 to 6 by car. Depending on your credit rating, And I'm not going to refer a ton to the character sheets, but credit rating in Trail of Cthulhu is kind of a general wealth level, if you will. What are your guys' credit ratings on your?
I was going to say, based on this mission, what's a good credit rating? Do you know? Just to see if any of us are good.
I mean, is anyone 4 or above?
I'm at a 3.
Yeah.
3. Okay, so but you're the dilettante, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so with 3, you could certainly have a car to go.
Yeah, I would
with it if
definitely
you
take
wanted
it.
to.
Yeah.
It'd be
I would
faster
prefer to
and
take
more
a car.
comfortable.
I have a 2.
I have
Yeah.
3.
Okay, yeah. So you guys, you're not going to generally be constrained by resources.
If that's the case, then yeah, let's go in a car together.
Okay.
Okay.
What kind of car? Do you know?
Well, I don't know. I'm not as rich as I used to be.
So it's like a
Okay.
5-year-old car. Yeah.
What's the 30? So it's
Yeah, what's
It's like a
we don't have many
Graham Nash.
choices?
we don't really
How
have
many choices?
When we did the that other adventure, I think it was in the 40s, but it was a Graham Nash Deluxe or something like
That's
that.
right,
We did
yeah.
something
Whatever they
like
would have
that,
available
yeah.
in Britain.
Yeah,
That would be
I'm
cool.
not sure about British cars in 1935, but with a credit rating of 3 or greater, you would either have your own car or be able to hire one for the
Yeah.
ride.
I would
So-
like to have our own just in case.
Be like a 5-year-old Jaguar.
Yeah, Jaguar.
All right, so if you guys are driving together, you're going to
Yeah.
leave early on the morning of the 15th. So her letter was, of course, they don't put a date on there.
I think you'd be driving.
Yeah.
There.
what you're driving.
How?
10.
Oh, yeah.
How?
Mine's only 6.
Yeah, I have no driving skill.
So you guys received the letter on the January 14th, 1935.
Cool.
So, given the length of the drive and the kind of the need to make preparations and pack and everything, you guys agreed to meet early on the morning of the 15th to make the drive up to Dartmoor. It's a cool, crisp, but beautiful morning in London when you guys get together. The sun is shining bright, but it's January in London, so it is cold.
Now, I want to make a mention too. One of the things I really enjoy when we play the older games is the idea of thinking in my head, getting in the right framework of for our general purposes. There's no television, there's no phones, there's no mobile phones, for goodness sakes. We're probably just reading the newspaper with day-old news, and you're not getting anything outside of your local community for several days. And I always love that idea, because when you just said, we received the letter here, and it's like 2 days later we're on the way. That's the way it used to work, and I like getting in that mindset.
Right, and
It's
so
fun.
that's exactly right. All of your interactions in this will be, in person. You're going to have to go to see people if you want to talk to
Yeah.
them. So,
Read books.
Yeah.
and this is a major trip. I mean, 6 to 7 hours by car.
Yeah.
You think about for us to go to the South Carolina shores, say 4 hours. So you guys are going to be in the car a good chunk of the day together.
Yeah.
But that's in part because autos are not.
It's
Go-
going to
go
break
80
down
miles an
3
hour.
times.
Yeah.
along
And the roads
way.
aren't nowhere near as good
Yeah.
either.
Especially if it's a Jaguar. It's breaking down several times on the way.
Few
Right.
problems ever since the beginning.
What's important about the trip itself is that, as your car works its way out of, even back then, the congestion of London, you start to move from the city to kind of areas of small villages. You're on country roads. The urban area has given way to like rolling green fields. So even though it's January here, there's not heavy snow on the ground. It's very pastoral as you drive along, but the roads are rough and bouncy, and it takes actually a bit of a physical toll to make a drive this long. You guys probably stop somewhat regularly to stretch your legs and work the kinks out of your back.
Especially me, I got the injured leg.
Exactly.
You got a bum leg?
That's right, because he got
Okay.
stabbed.
Oh.
I took a knife to the leg.
Did you take it out?
No, it's like
Just left the blade in.
It's a handle.
now it's a sheath.
Nice.
The area that you're going through in real life is the area where, this is just as an aside, I think Conan Doyle, who wrote
Oh, yeah, the
Sherlock Holmes
Yep.
Adventures. This is actually where he stayed when he was writing The Hound of Baskervilles. So
Oh,
if you guys
neat.
have read The Hound of Baskervilles, you know that like desolate kind of the moors.
Yeah,
yeah.
I never read it, but I did see the TV
Yeah.
episode.
So Dartmoor is,
whatever
I
that
think,
was.
supposed to be kind of similar in your mind to there.
Gotcha.
So
Cool.
as you guys,
So there's always a mist hanging over the ground. And,
that's right.
all
So, well, interestingly, today as you guys get out there, there has been a noticeable change in weather as you near the village. When you start to, as you get closer and closer, the sky gets more and more gray. It's really cold. Like you went from cool, crisp January day, like what you would expect in London, to kind of frigid cold as you near Post Bridge. There's even some flurries starting in the sky, and this is more than just a 5-degree temperature drop. I mean,
Wow.
you were all shocked
Okay.
at how gray.
What
and
time
icy.
you said it was January?
January, mid-January, yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, that's kind of you guys are a little bit shocked at the change in
So
the
even
weather.
for the time of year, this is still a little odd.
It strikes you at this point that it's pretty darn cold out. So I'll just leave it at that. So the only, I think, link that you have at this point is the fact that you know that Professor Blackwood is staying at the Thistle Lodge. But when you guys come into the village of Postbridge, as I said, it's kind of one main street. There's a street, and on the one you guys are coming in from the east, and you actually hit the Thistle Lodge would be one of the first major buildings that you get to. You pass some farmhouses. There are sheep and cows actually out in the field. This is definitely rural England at this point. But when you get to the towards the Thistle Lodge, you can see that it's really quite picturesque building. It's on a street that runs away from the village proper. It's built out of stone, has a small garden in the front. Even though it's January, you can tell it's likely a vegetable garden. Maybe it provides food for the guests there or something like that. But the building itself almost seems to kind of disappear into the landscape around it, which at this point is, you're pulling up, and even though there's some flurries in the air, at this point it is kind of a green rolling landscape as you arrive into the village.
I'm assuming there aren't too many motorized transports in the town.
They're not. In fact, you haven't passed a car for the last 2 hours of your drive.
People with
That was probably about 2 hours ago that I stopped looking out the back window to see if there were any cops behind us and started looking out the front window at the countryside.
At the former cop that was riding with.
Exactly. Former being the key word. Yeah.
Did you stab him in the leg?
Shh. He doesn't know it. They don't follow prints. That's time left remaining.
Yeah, so I could park it wherever I could, to make sure it's out of the way. I don't want to be one of those guys that are just like taking up space here.
Park it right behind the horses so they can't get out.
Park it right in the garden.
Yeah.
Not being used right now, right?
Step on the gas to harvest some of the carrots. All right.
Are y'all gonna head into the
lodge?
I'd like to take a look around to see, do people find us weird pulling in with a car like this? Are they looking at us weird because we're dressed differently? What's the kind of like the, I don't know, like the personality of the town that we could just pick up?
Is everyone dressed in farming clothes?
Yeah, great question. So unless you
we're
want
city
to
folk.
drive into town before you go to the lodge,
Would you want to do something like that? It wouldn't catch me.
It's fine
It would
if you do.
Like, it wouldn't catch my character. Like, I would do it personally, but would that be something
Now,
the character
for
would
me,
want to do?
I guess the way I'm looking at it is I'm not here really to steal something, so I don't need to case the joint yet.
Gotcha.
If I see something that's worthwhile, then I'll hang back and be inconspicuous.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. I would
In
stop
the
right
meantime,
there.
you guys will walk up front anyway. They're always more likely to notice the guy with the limp. And I can just stand behind, kind of walking casually.
So the reason I ask is, like I said, you're coming into town from
We have a
the
map of the
east.
town? Yeah,
So you're
okay,
coming
good.
in on this road, and you're hitting the lodge before you would get to the main street of town.
Okay. Is there anything on there we can't see?
that you can't see?
As in, we're not supposed to see.
Yeah. Because otherwise, if you want, you can put it out here and we can.
Yeah, it's just that you wouldn't know what else was there until you went there.
Okay, then that's fine.
Yeah.
Unless it was still like a building. Oh, we can see that building from where we're stopping the car.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So where you stop,
We can
it's
play
probably-
stupid, you know.
I was gonna
that.
say it's a couple hundred yards up to the main
Yeah.
street, and you can tell that there's not a lot here. I mean, this is a small village. It looks like just down the road, maybe 100 yards in front of you or 200 yards is where you tee with what I'll call Main Street, and it looks like there might be an inn or a tavern or a bar up there on the corner. You see residential small houses, kind of thatched roof English cottages, and then it looks like maybe there's a general store. I mean, this is up there. You can definitely tell that there's a church up at the far end of the street. So, having said that, I think it's fine to put that out there.
Hey, look at our map. Neat.
And that's just from the end of the PDF.
So, yeah, I guess what I would say, too, do we still have a little bit of flurries going?
Just the beginning of the flurry. So, like I said,
Okay.
it's you've got the garden and the green rolling lands, but it is cold and it appears to have just started a light snow.
So it's at least in my head that before we leave town, I want to check out the church because they almost always have old books that people want at a church.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I'd say let's go into the lodge, get warmed up, get something to eat. Been a long road, long drive.
Okay. So This is not a particularly large. It's what I would think of as almost a bed and breakfast. As you may or may not know, over there, often people essentially open up their homes and they'll have rooms for rent. It's a little bit bigger than that, but it's not anything like a modern hotel. You all open the front door, which is fairly heavy and well built, and you notice almost immediately upon stepping inside that while the entry area is relatively Spartan, it's not overdone with what I would call tchotchkes. It is very warm and accommodating and appealing to be there. You notice right by the door where you come in, there's like a large, what looks like a man's kind of barber jacket, like you might wear out in the fields working, a rain jacket, and a large pair of boots there.
Is there a fire going?
There's a fire going,
fireplace?
exactly. And then even here, as you come in, you can see just off to the right that there's kind of a casual dining area with a table where perhaps you might be able to take dinner with her. And when I say her, as you come in, you're greeted by what you assume is kind of the proprietor of the place, who comes over and is very welcoming and friendly and appears happy to have potential guests having just walked in her front door.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, I will not acknowledge her directly, but I'll unwrap my scarf around my neck, unbutton my pea coat a little, and start to catch the warmth of the fireplace.
Okay. And she comes over and she says, "Oh, hello everyone. Glad to have you. You don't look like you're from around here. If I may, I'll introduce myself. I'm Hannah Blacknam. My husband James and I run this establishment. Can we help you? Do you perhaps need a room this evening?"
We're definitely going to need a room, but we're also looking for an acquaintance of ours. She's a professor. She's staying here.
And as soon as you ask that, you can see Hannah kind of gets visibly distraught, and she said, she kind of turns and says, "Have you all seen the morning paper?"
We just pulled into town.
And
Where
find
is the
morning
paper?
It's on the back of the other handout that I just used.
On the back of the map?
Yes.
Let me see that. I'll read the paper.
You want to read the paper?
Sure, I'll read
It's
it.
the bottom handout there.
The bottom one. The paper reads, "Unseen hand strikes again. A road outside the village of Postbridge, Devon, sees third accident in as many months. Margaret Blackwood, professor of folklore at UCL and winner of the Coots Lake Medal, was driven from the road to her death in mysterious circumstances last night. Two similar accidents include the death of a doctor in a motor coach crash, the driver of which claimed it was as if two large, strong, hairy hands grabbed the wheel, forcing him to swerve. A local psychic suggests the presence of a malign spirit, possibly a murderer. Authorities are dismissive of such fantasies, claiming the deaths result from drivers on unfamiliar... I should have brought my glasses with me today. Sorry. Oh.
Right, the authorities.
Yeah, if you guys would like to read the article.
And that is, I believe, from the Tavistock Times. The main takeaway there is that Professor Blackstock has died in a traffic accident. This comes as such a shock to all of you who know her personally, and really she considers you trusted confidants, that each of you needs to make a 3-point stability test.
All right, tell us how that works, Kurt.
Yeah,
Or is there something on here that we can read, one of us can read? Is this a general ability?
Stability is considered something separate, so the bottom middle column might be helpful on the cheat sheet. You want to read it, or you want me to read it?
Yeah, I'll grab that one. Stability protects you from shock. Test stability versus 4 for ordinary horror versus 5 for mythos events. If you fail, you lose a stated amount from your stability pool. Some mythos threats cause stability loss even on a success. Point spends from the stability pool may be worthwhile against far greater loss from a failed test. Okay.
So here's the key on this. You're going to roll 1d6. You need to get a 4 or better.
Okay.
Or you lose whatever the amount of the test is, which in this case is 3 points stability.
Now, are you supposed to tell us that number ahead of time?
I am.
Okay.
And you can choose to spend stability points.
So if I roll a 3, I want to spend the 1 so I don't take the 3 loss.
You have to spend in advance.
Right.
When you spend, you lose those points. So mathematically, on a relatively low cost, it may not be worth spending 2 points to avoid the risk of losing 3.
Yeah.
Especially because if you still lose, you lose the spend and the 3.
Yeah.
I think mathematically, when I've looked at it, and I'm not trying to influence the game here, but on high risk things, it's often worth spending the points.
Yeah.
But on the smaller ones,
So we have to get 3 or higher than 3.
you need
Four
four
or higher.
on this particular test. And if you fail, it will be 3 points off of your stability pool.
I'll go first.
So are you going to spend any points, or are you just
2.
going to roll?
I'm actually going to go right for it and spend 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to lose those 2 from your pool
Yep.
for the rest of the game, regardless.
And let's see what that's a 6. I didn't really
That's a
need to
6.
spend anything.
All right, so you did not.
But I
need
got
to.
it. But I lost 2 instead of 3.
Correct.
And that's what I'm looking at.
So,
So
definitely mark
my
that down.
stability is now at an 8.
Yes, that's right. And so you guys, when you lose stability, mechanically that has no effect right now on the game. But you guys are certainly welcome to kind of role play how that goes. And losing 1 or 2 points is going to be like a shock. Maybe
Yeah.
you need to sit down and have a minute. Losing 3 or 4 points, is a bigger deal. You're that kind of thing.
Right.
Well, for me, I think it's enough that I was shaking while I was reading the article.
Right. But,
Definitely.
okay. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. I'm not going to use any points though.
Oh, okay. So Chris
Should
rolled
have.
a
He
3.
rolled a 3.
Well, that's all right. So
That's fine. I'll lose 3 points.
he fails the test. So you actually do receive a shock from this. In this case, that shock, I believe I said, was a 3 points.
Yep.
Kurt, would you grab one more pencil out of there, please?
Absolutely.
I've been sharing one with Chris here, and I'll have one for myself.
I'm going to use 1 point.
Thank you, sir.
It's,
1 point for Terrence.
Oh,
no.
He rolled a uno.
So
I lose 4.
Terry got the worst possible result, which was he spent a point and he failed the test.
Mhm.
So you are going to lose
Oh,
4
what?
stability
I
points.
gotta.
So
put in the
8 to
wrong place
4
there.
is not a great start for Terry.
Uh-huh.
I will mention that when you get to 0 on stability, you are treated as being shaken in the game,
Yep.
which has some penalties associated with
Mm.
it. Basically, it makes your investigations and skill checks harder. If you get to -6 to 11, then you're what's considered blasted, and it gets even worse. And if you were to get to -12, then you are, as they say, permanently gaga goo goo. So,
We don't want none of that going on.
It actually does. On the quick sheet says permanently gaga at -12.
Yeah.
Nice.
You start wearing meat suits and
Yeah.
So, and Hannah, obviously, 'cause she can tell that you are all shaking, some more than others.
You can't read my poker face.
I have to sit down.
And so she says, I hate to be the bringer of this bad news right upon your arrival to our wonderful town. Perhaps I could make a spot of tea. Would that make you feel better, young man?
Yes, bring tea for us.
Yeah, send some food as well.
She says, I'll see what I can do.
Make it Irish.
Tea and biscuits, please.
So she,
Crumpets.
So she goes
And
off to
crumpets.
off to that right area where I told you there was kind of a dining table, and then even back in from there must be the kitchen. And you hear her bustling around, and she comes back, just a few minutes later, and she has a very nice, simple but nice teapot and 3 cups of tea with saucers. And she has Irish breakfast tea for Terrence, and then she offers Earl Grey, an English breakfast for you as well.
Yep.
And then she's put out a couple of scones and a couple of very simple biscuits.
Good.
So,
We're thinking, what time of day is it right now when we got here?
It's got to be past midday.
yeah, well past midday.
We're
It was
towards
a
the
6 to 7
evening.
drives, 6 to 7 hour drive.
And how early would we have left, though? So, okay.
Late afternoon, early evening.
Yeah.
We're pretty much doing a dinner at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say it's going to be dark out this time of year.
Yeah, it's tea time.
Tea time.
Um,
Well, we are having
in,
tea.
In,
so.
in January, it will be getting dark early there.
Yeah.
So if it's not dark yet, it's moving that way.
Can I ask her about who's the local psychic here? It was mentioned in the paper.
She asked who the local psychic is.
Yeah.
Do you have that article?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I
Oh, yeah.
give you the
It
proper.
has the name.
Also, do you know the name of the doctor that who failed the accident?
Kurt has to read it.
Yeah, I'm just reading the
He's almost there.
article to make sure. Yeah,
And
and
it
she
says-
says the doctor, that was some time ago. Both these other accidents were some time ago. She's like, he was from out of town as well. To be honest, I don't recall his name, but I'm sure I could find it. I have old newspapers and notes.
Yes.
I can certainly get that for you. She says, she says, the Tavistock Times is she's like, it's our paper and we love it, but it's a bit of a, what you might call a tabloid. She says, we don't really have a psychic per se. She says, but we do have people here who are very knowledgeable about local legends and folklore and things of that nature. And I think is probably as William is probably the person who provided that quote to the newspaper.
William.
I
So-
believe it's Blackman. Let me just double.
Not quite clairvoyant, but in the know.
Correct.
William. Great.
We'll call him Bill.
Local authorities
call
that they
him Billy.
said, where would we go to speak with them?
I just want to make sure I give you the right name. Excuse me. Yeah, William MacArthur.
MacArthur.
Yeah, and she could tell you a little bit more about him. But she's
Billy Mac.
says, the authorities, well, you would have to go see. I'm afraid you'd have to go see the constable in Princetown. They're dealing with the investigation of the crash. That's kind of the next town over from this little village.
How far is Princetown?
It's not far. It's just up the road.
I'd very much like to go speak with them.
Where, what part of town were the accidents in the same part of town? Like exact?
They were in the same place.
Same time of day?
No, not necessarily. It's just particular area of the road where this is the third time that there's been a fatal accident there. But she tells you that the police in Princeton or Princetown are handling the investigation. Do you want to ask her anything else?
Do you think that anything malevolent is going on, or do you accept the constable's explanation of just not knowing the road?
Well, with respect to the accident side, I don't, this legend of the hairy hands that people talk about. She's like, I think that's silly. I don't think that there's anything untoward in that regard. Why don't you roll and assess honesty though, or something, or some similar kind of personal skill?
I got assess honesty. One in that.
Better than none.
That's a 4.
Okay, so you got 4 with that swing. Okay, so, and generally most of your rolls you're rolling against a 4. So you
What's the one?
believe that, well, you would have to spend that one. If
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which I'm not asking you to do here. You believe her. She doesn't think that there's anything mysterious about the deaths, but you also get the sense that maybe she's kind of, there's something that she's worried about and she hasn't told you everything. You also, being British, however, would not expect a strange lady you met 10 minutes ago to tell you everything that was on her mind. But she may know more or be worried about something that you haven't told her yet.
She could tell us something more about William MacArthur.
Where would we find him?
She says, well, William, he's quite a character. He, how shall I say this politely? He's, well, he likes to tip a few back. You can usually find him at the East Dart, which is our local drinking establishment just up the road. I think you probably could even see it as you came in. East Dart, he's there most days. He had a really horrible experience in the war when he was in France, and he's a veteran, and to be honest, he's never recovered from the things he saw there, and I think he has to drink the memories away. So, but he really does know a remarkable amount about our local history and legends and folklore. If you buy him a drink, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to share that with you.
Could you tell us where these accidents happened as well?
She can. She knows the area well enough to give you kind of precise directions
Okay.
to the area where that happens.
Good.
Does anyone have oral history as a skill that they ever point in?
No, I do not.
Or
I have library use, that's about all, but unless there's some books or other newspapers around, I don't see that helping.
I have
much.
history.
I do have history,
I
yeah.
have history. Yeah. I have art history, but it's not going to be useless.
okay. Yeah, so she'll just tell you that William Blackman tends to hang out at the East Dart Inn, and she'll also mention that he she knows that Professor Professor Blackwood had at some point interviewed him because of his knowledge.
Right.
I would definitely much like to do that as well.
And you said you might know something about the doctor's name? Previous accident?
Oh yes, she says, you know, if you can give me a couple minutes, I'll go look around and find that for you.
Okay. Is her husband kind of behind the scenes, or is...
So you actually don't see her husband. You see the coat and boots that you presume are his, but you don't see him anywhere. So she's here, and you haven't seen any guests or anything otherwise.
It does sound like we may be in town for a few days. Perhaps we should get a room regardless.
Well, I guess we'll find out after
Well, definitely.
talking to the constable in Princeton.
Because
Princeton.
all my years on the force, one or two accidents you can probably write off, but I'm not putting any stock into this myth, but there seems to be something going on if there's 3 different accidents that seem very similar, all in the same area. That doesn't fit right with me.
Who was the third? So we had the professor, the doctor, and the third.
And then there was a like a motor bus coach that had crashed there as well.
I wonder if everybody's looking at the same thing.
Big hairy hands.
Well, I got big hairy hands, but come on.
Did you ask about her husband at all?
Yeah, I didn't yet. I wanted to see if we noticed him.
Yeah. No, you didn't.
But I was going to wait till she came back with the doctor's
what-
information first. We were just chatting amongst ourselves before she got back.
I think we need a game plan of what to
I'd
do
say we
next.
talk to William MacArthur, then take a drive by the accident site to see if something looks odd.
I would definitely like to talk to the constable,
then-
so I can probably
And
get
I'm not,
some useful information from
yeah,
him.
and I'm not sure if we want to talk to the constable tonight or tomorrow.
Definitely tomorrow. It's very late.
I would say William MacArthur and
Yes.
the location, accident location.
Well, we won't be able to see much on the location tonight. I mean, it's fairly dark.
Yeah, but I'd like to get an idea of what the road does look like at that time of day.
We'll walk.
Oh, I'll take a drive a little bit. I want to see what happens.
It's a bit
Where's your
cold
sense of
out.
adventure?
Well, I think this would be a good place to take a little break.
You think?
And we can, when we pick it back up, we can start on whichever one of those paths y'all want to follow.
How's it going so far, Kurt?
I mean, you guys have already blown some stability tests. You're a little
Yeah.
shaken, so I think that's a good start for a Trail of Cthulhu adventure.
Are we getting the clues, following the clues?
You are.
Sounds good. Cool.
All right.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, and I call,
Yeah,
occasionally
get
I'm going to have
ready
to
with
look
that.
up names and things because
We have an unnecessary success, fail.
Unnecessary.
or unnecessary use of points
Yeah.
on a success, a
Yeah.
fail,
Fail.
and then a big fail.
Yeah.
So that's
We're right on track.
it's all good.
Right on track.
But you guys are
exactly.
in town, you've got a room, you've got a nice innkeeper ready to take care of you, and you've got at least a couple of clues to follow. So it sounds like you're ready for episode 2 shortly.
Cool. I'm going to try and open this exit music here and see if I get it right. I'll have to listen, though. So talk for another second.
Are you able to at least
What
give
did we
us
do
the
next?
name of the doctor before we
Oh, yeah.
bow out of the...
Let's see if I can find that.
Just so I can
Let
put
me
it
see if I can
put it
find
into the note pile.
I am not sure if to be honest, if I have that, and I don't think.
Or I guess the more important thing is like, what was he a doctor? Was he just a straight medical guy, and what was he looking into, kind of thing?
but that we'll probably have to find out later.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if she would have the information now, so we're not.
I guess that's the end of the timer.
When you guys talk to the police,
You know how to use a phone?
if I have that or make
It
it up,
wasn't-
I'll give it to you
yeah.
when you guys talk to the police officer.
All right, that's cool.
You'll be able to.
Fantastic. All right, I think I might have this ready, so let me go ahead and end it.
The preceding podcast was brought to you by One Joe Young. You can find us online at adventuresfromtheshed.com.